Of course, here at the Legends Rugby Grounds, my name is Ruben Kihumuro of the Fat Cats podcast, the build-up to match day one of the Rugby Africa Cup. And of course, it's going to be an interesting one. Of course, the anticipation has been growing and it's 3 days to go. A Saturday here where the Rugby Cranes are having a bit of a run out, just fine-tune a few things before they get to play Kenya on Tuesday. Of course, joining me for this particular one is a man that is no stranger to the heat that is on that particular pitch. But we're going to also ask him now, being on this other side, how he feels not having, after a long season, now you get into the test rugby season and all that stress and how your body feels. But George Scott Oluoch, thank you for joining us for this one.
Thank you.
How are you? How was your weekend? I'm sorry for dragging you from wherever you might have been.
Weekends are idle and disorderly.
Especially now
Nothing's
that the league is done.
The league is dead. People are playing sevens.
For
Can't
you,
play
you don't want to play
sevens.
sevens.
No, I don't want to play sevens, man.
But anyway, before we get into a lot of things, do you remember the number of tests you played for Uganda?
How many are there?
We have a general problem in Uganda where players never seem to track the number of tests they play. And I don't think we also, maybe now, of course, Isametrics is doing a good job, but previously the players never knew the number of tests they played. So you never used to count at all.
No, I never used to count.
Okay. All right. Anyway, so looking at how you've been seeing the preparations and all compared to previous times when you were part of the setup, what do you have to say about this particular preparation for the Rugby Africa Cup?
I think they have had enough time. Yeah, they have had enough time. So I hope everything comes together on the first game. The first game is normally, especially after a long period of preparation, the first game is normally very jittery.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and of course, maybe just tracking a little bit back to Southern Africa, the three tests that we played against Namibia, the narrow loss, then again the win against the Limpopo Blue Bulls, and a very big loss against the Pumas. Do you think that gave us enough test or enough preparation for this particular match day against a team like Kenya?
yeah, against a team like Kenya, yeah, that's enough, because I'm guessing, especially the last game, which was the biggest loss, that should have woken people up, because that's a good side. That's the upside of a loss. Normally it wakes you up. If you are a honest player, I think you assess yourself, and I think they've had enough time to sort of improve or work on whatever weaknesses they had against that game. Because the scoreline, I'm willing to bet the scoreline doesn't really indicate, the scoreline is not indicative of what really happened on the field that day. You might find some things were happening right, but the finishing was not helping. So the scoreline is not really an indicative, it's not really indicative of what happened in that game. So I'm hoping they worked on whatever weaknesses they had that made that scoreline that big.
Yeah, of course, for those watching this is a break, a build-up to the Rugby Africa Cup that is powered by Rock Boom. So if you're watching this, just enjoy Rock Boom wherever you might be, and make sure that on match day as well, of course, we know that the games start in the morning, of course, with Zimbabwe taking on new entrants Morocco. Then the second game will be at midday, that will be Algeria taking on Cote d'Ivoire. Then the third game will be Namibia taking on Senegal, and then the big one, Uganda versus Kenya. So make sure that you are energized as you watch these games, but particularly from maybe your reflection as someone that has been there and done that and played for the Rugby Cranes against a familiar foe in Kenya. Recently, we have seen the closest we came to giving ourselves hope to a victory against Kenya was Victoria Cup, where we beat them in Kampala, but were unable to get the victory in Kisumu. And yet again, we missed out on the Elgon Cup. But now, these are guys that we have played for quite a while, but somehow, when it matters most, we do not beat them. Do you think it is maybe more mental than physical, or do you think they're just better than us physically and mentally both?
I think Kenya kind of studied our weaknesses.
Okay.
Yeah, so the last couple of years, I think Uganda has been lacking in the forward department, which is very odd because you used to boss everyone around in the forward department, Zimbabwe inclusive. So they have really, really upped the ante in that department. So the Kenyan forwards are bruisers. So the last couple of years, I think that has been the, how do you call it, the decider?
Yeah.
Yeah, the forward play.
So do you think it's safe to say that Tuesday's game, Uganda versus Kenya, is going to be more of a park-centered game?
Yeah.
So what are those fundamental parts of in the forwards game that we need to get right for us to have an edge over Kenya?
Set pieces, number one. We have to get our lineouts right. We cannot afford to miss our lineouts. The park, I know we will hold them in the park, but execution of set pieces, that one is a must, especially when it comes to lineouts and mauling. Kenya also mauls a lot. And then the back rows. They have bruisers in the back rows, so our back rows had better be up for a fight. That one they better have it in their heads that they're going to be up for, because they have to boss the Kenyan back rows. The Kenyan back rows nowadays are very mobile. They're very, how do you call it, aggressive. Yeah. So that's where
I don't know if you've have you had a chance to look at the Kenya squad and maybe identify some maybe key players that we can maybe look out for?
No, I've seen they have a few new faces.
Yeah,
then they're the old guys.
Maybe some of the news that came through in their squad that you can maybe identify. Of course, some of the key additions. Johnny Kubu is back for this particular one. He wasn't available for last year. Brian Wahinya will be available as well. Samuel Asati comes from the Kenya Sevens as well, and he's going to be part of this one. But also they have some people that are not there. Buildup Ogeta, who was their top scorer from last year, isn't there this time because of injury. Samson Onsomu as well, the experienced number 9, is not there because of injury. And Malcolm Onsando, who shocked everyone by retiring and just focusing on his personal business, saying that maybe that gives him a lot more than rugby could give him. So, but yeah, that is ideally it. But I think, Major, let's talk about Johnny Kubu. When you look at a player like him, what do you think that he adds to the Kenya team? Something that he adds as a spice to the Simbas?
Kubu, distribution. He's very quick in distribution, and he releases his centers very quickly. And he also has a very good boot. And then also, there's a number 9 from Kenya Sevens. What is his name? The small guy.
Samuel Asati should be the name. Yeah, let me just quickly go through that lineup and then get that name, because they did actually call a number of halfbacks. But as we go through, maybe I want to, as I look for the lineup, I want to ask Johnny Kubu, do you think he's better used at 10 or at 15? Where do you think he's more lethal?
10.
10.
Yeah.
But I feel like at 10 he's more restricted to distributing. When you have him at 15, he gets a chance to actually stretch his legs and run more.
You see, Kubu doesn't have pace. That is the thing.
Really?
No, he doesn't have a lot of pace.
What he did to us in Kisumu, I beg to differ. One cut and no one could touch him.
Because the running line he has taken, you can't touch him even if you had pace. But on the straight, he doesn't have that much pace. But his biggest strength, the last time I watched him play was in France. And that game against Namibia. In that game, they used the first fly half wasn't distributing that quick, and also his kicks were very predictable. So the Namibia backs kept fielding all his kicks, so none of his kicks went out into touch. So then they subbed on Kubu, and Kenya started moving. So I see that's one of his biggest strengths, distribution. So at 10, he would be much more lethal.
Okay, so the scrum halves that were put in the squad, that is Samuel Asati and Brian Tanga. Tanga is the one you're talking about. Why do you think Tanga is special for them?
Tanga is crazy. I played him once when I was at Queen's, and Queen's Cabras, of course, and he's very quick. He can take a gap. He has an eye for gaps, and his distribution also is very precise.
Okay, now let's go back to the Cranes, the ones we're a bit more familiar with. So the Cranes, looking at the squad, of course, maybe just to quickly peruse through it without wasting too much time. The props, we have Santos Senteza, Blair Bobone Ayebaziwe, Sol Chivumbi, Fahad Maido, Collins Chimbowa. The hookers, we went with two, interestingly. I think, in my opinion, I would have thought that there should have been three hookers in the squad, but they took two. Nathan Bwambale and Edward Emiemo of Walukuba. And then the locks, we have Julius Opio, Sydney Gongodio, Elefaze Mong, and Brian Wandera. The loose forwards, we have Byron Oketayot, Frank Chidega, Pius Ogena, Desire Yera, and Alex Aturinda. Scrum halves, we have Conrad Wanyama and Aaron Ofoiroth. Fly halves, we have Liam Walker and William Korek. Centers, we have Isaac Masanganzira and Ian Munyani. Outside backs, we have Joseph Aredo, Adrian Casito, Philip Wokorach, Timothy Kisika, Shakim Sembusi, and Claude Otema. We have four debutants, Isaac Masanganzira, William Kore, Fahad Maido, and there's one more who's, and Blair Ayebaziwe. Do you think this is the right squad? When you saw this squad for the first time being released, and of course there are some key omissions that many people have been talking about, do you think that it's the right one, or do you think some people that were omitted could have added more or done something?
That is a very
tricky question.
Because
it's just your opinion. What was okay? Let me just phrase it this way. What was your opinion when you saw the squad?
The squad, because going against the form of those players in the league, I wouldn't have a problem with them being on the squad, because most of them have, especially players like Maido, have really proved a point. Massa has led his team, and of course we have been seeing what Philip has been doing. And in the forwards, which is what I'm more familiar with, that is now where the worry is. The backs I'm not really worried about.
Why are you worried about the forwards?
Because
tell me.
You will see.
But so if you had a chance to pick your starting eight, who would they be?
Santos, my boy.
Santos, at loose head.
At loose head.
Okay.
Yeah. Then
between the hookers, you have Bwambale and Emiemo. Who would you start? Who would come on to finish? Bwambale. Okay. Tight head?
Tight head. Now tight head is a trick. Since there is no... Who are the tight heads?
The props that were listed, Santos Senteza, Blair Ayebaziwe, Sol Chivumbi, Fahad Maido, and Colin Chimbowa.
Colin. I feel Colin has improved.
Okay.
Yeah. Watching him in the league, I hope his fitness is up. Yeah.
Then in the engine room, of course, Julius Opio, Sydney Gongodio, Elifaze Mong, Brian Wandera. The interesting thing that we have about our locks and loose forwards is that they are versatile. You'll find that some of our loose forwards can actually lock, and some of our locks can actually play in loose forward. So in the engine room, who are the two that you trust to go there? Of course,
number one is Mong.
Mong.
Now the other lock is now where the trick is, because if we need jumpers, I'll have to put...
You have Julius Opio, you have Sydney, you have Elifaz, you have Brian Wandera. Each of them offering a different facet of productivity.
Okay, Julius Opio and Elifaz Omo.
Okay, those are your two.
Yeah.
And then in the back row, where you have played a lot of your rugby, Byron Oketayot, who's captain, Frank Chidega, vice captain, Pius Ogena, Desire Yera, and Alex Aturinda.
Desire.
At what position? 6 or 8? 8.
No, 6.
6. Okay.
Then Sydney at 8.
Sydney at 8.
No, wait.
You have Pius, you have Alex, you have...
Pius at 8. Desire at 6.
And 7. You have Byron, you have Frank Chidega, you have Pius, you have Desire, you have Alex. And then you have a back row that can also play lock in Sydney Gongodio. What are you going to do if you are the coach?
Okay, maybe I'd put Gongodio in at lock.
In at lock?
Yeah. Then
You're putting Gongojo in at lock in whose place?
Nicholas comes off the bench.
You're saying
Nicholas.
Julius.
Julius, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Julius. I know you're a good player. Yeah.
But now aren't we messing with the jumper situation?
Nanti now Gongodi has to jump. He has no option.
Okay.
Gongodi jumps,
So you
right?
want Gongodi at 6?
Gongodi at lock.
At lock.
Yes.
Then
The lock.
6, you say Desire. Do you stick with that?
Stick with that.
7.
Byron. Yeah. And Pius.
And Pius at 8.
Yeah.
Tell me why that would be your ideal combination to start against Kenya. The back row, especially. Why Desire at 6, Byron at 7, and Pius at 8? And also why you made the switch for Byron to go into the lock?
I mean, what's his name? Sydney. Because Sydney can move.
Yeah.
And he's the only person who can play lock amongst the back rows. And if we were to look for a mobile pack, I'm thinking I would push him in so that we have at least 4 guys who can move. So that means Sydney, in his free time, which he won't have much of, Sydney's free time will check out, I hope instinctively, help the back row. Hopefully instinctively. I hope he'll have his hands full, but because I know he's mobile, I know he can carry the ball. So he has to check in and help the back row guys. Because at some point, we will need all of them moving around.
Okay.
They will really need to move around.
All right. So, do you care to name the backs as well, or you don't want the Katembo of the backs?
They don't want the Katembo of the backs.
Okay.
But wait. Number 9.
Number 9 there, Conrad and Aaron.
Conrad and Aaron.
Aaron.
Yeah.
Okay. Fly halves, Liam Walker and William Corey. Both offering a different dynamic when it comes to being a number 10. Of course, Liam's boot has been very influential, but he has also improved in his distribution. But then we have Nkori that has been the on-form man this season and this year. So
pick Liam.
You pick Liam. Why?
One thing I know about Liam is his precision. With kicks. He's very precise with kicks, especially for territory. And his distribution. I know Nkori has been good with kicks. But I think Liam has an edge when it comes to distribution and territory.
Okay. Yeah. So, choosing between the centers and the back 3. First of all, before we choose, what you've played this season with Innocent Gokto.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he's not part of the 28 that were chosen.
Yeah.
In that situation, you've been in, I don't know how many situations you've been in where a team is selected and you're not part of it. What is normally going through a player's mind in that regard?
When you're not part of it.
When you're not selected, after all the hard work, after probably getting your hopes up and putting in the work, what's normally going through a player's mind at that time? And what do you think the coaches say to you to try and, I don't know, get you in the right headspace?
Because most of the time, if you don't make the squad, it is, if there's no politics involved, like I'm going to talk like honest, if there's no politics involved, and you have probably seen that someone is better than you, it's pretty obvious that someone is better than you in that position. But if the coaches don't tell you what's going on and things like that, normally players are very angry. Some players are angry. Some say, oh, I'm never going back to the national team and things like that, and blah, 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 and things like that. But it really helps if a coach explains to a player that, see, this is the reason why either you're on the bench or, like now, for example, say Julius Opio can come off the bench for Gombodio. And the reason I've said that is Gongodio is a big ball carrier. And Julius Opio is very fit. You get, so in those last minutes, when let's say you're chasing points or you need someone who you know, if he steps on the field, he's going to deliver. when it comes to Julius Opio, I'm not going to mince my words. I think he's been either the fittest flank within a secondary in Uganda. So you know if Julius Opio steps on the field, he's going to bring his work rate.
Yeah.
So when the game is dipping and you have someone like Julius Opio running one, there at least you know you're covered. That base is covered.
Do you think he has the right facets to be the successor of Charles Uhuru? Of course, Uganda has always had those ideal line-out jumpers and, of course, the line-out callers. Of course, we have looked at people like Matthias Ochoa. Now we saw Charles Uhuru, who has also served his time, not in this squad at the moment. And Julius Opio, in many people's words, seems to be the person that can fit into that role. Do you think he has what it takes to fit into that role, or he's just his own kind of player?
He's his own kind of player.
He's his own kind.
Because, number one, he's fit. He is fit. And he plays like a number 7. And no, sorry, number 6. He's a bruiser. He's fit. He can run. So Uhuru is not a runner. You know that. Uhuru has 2 Sorry. Uhuru cannot run for Uhuru cannot run for his life. So, and Matthias, of course, yes. Now I can put him in the form of in the mold of Matthias. Someone who you know can run, is fit, can bruise. Yeah, I would put him in the form of Matthias. So he's good. He's good.
Okay, so
I hope he gets playing time because I would really want to see him. I would really want to see how he play. And also the other Rams.
Brian Wandera. Yes, the 50 million man. 50 million man. That's his buyout.
That was that during those years, man.
Rams is not playing games. 50 million. If you don't have no conversation.
I hope Wandera he looks like a quiet man.
Yeah.
I hope he.
I think what Brian Wandera brings to the table majorly is that he has an origin in boxing, so that he's fit and he's tenacious and he's a very, very good tackler. He's always looking for work. So I think he'll be off the bench. I think he can really, really offer a lot, especially considering how that second half might be against Kenya. I think he will do a really good job. But anyway, just looking at, I'm going to give you this as a collective, and then you just identify for me how your centers will be and your back 3. So the centers, Isaac Massa, Ian Munyani. Outside backs are Joseph Aredo, Adrian Casito, Philip Okorach, Timothy Kisiga, Shakim Sembusi, and Claude Tema. So who would your centers be? Judging that, of course, with the outside backs have the ability of also slotting into the center positions.
Who is the toughest 12 then?
Who's the toughest 12? The toughest 12, in my opinion, is actually a debutant, Isaac Massa. It's so interesting to actually say debut and then you're talking about Massa. He has spent so much time in the 7s that calling him a rookie in the 15s is very funny, but that's the case we have. He looks like our typical number 12. Most of them offer you that sort of second playmaker kind of number 12.
Yeah.
When you look at Joseph Aredo, when you look at maybe trying to slot in Timothy Kisiga somewhere in the centers, you're all looking at people who have a playmaker kind of setting. But now Isaac Massa gives you that defensive solidity, and then also he gives you a good carry on a good day.
See, now the problem is you're playing with Kenya. That number 12 channel.
Yes.
You'll always have flankers running into it.
Yes.
And if Massa is to be number 12, he will have his hands full. I don't even think he'll have time to create, to be honest.
Okay.
Because Kenyan likes to send big people down that channel. So you need a number 12 who is more of a bruiser than a, how do you call it, creator.
Than a creator, playmaker.
Yeah, because now you find cases. That's why I'm always pushing Okorach into that channel. Because you see, once Okorach stands in that channel, the whole attention of the backline and the flankers, everyone is focused on him. So he allows his people like his brother, Innocent, and other guys to run around. Because he picks so much attention. Every time Okorach carries a ball, it takes about 4 people to put him down. So now you have to have someone like that in that channel. Someone in that.
But you have not answered my question. Out of those people, who's your 12? Scott's ideal 12 from the squad. Because they're maybe just to try and ease your thought process. There are combinations where people say it could be Aredo can fit into that role as well, because we saw last year he came through and played that role as a number 12 second playmaker. Unfortunately, we don't have Innocent Gokto anymore, but Ian Munyani can also be there. He's a big boy, which allows perhaps maybe someone like Timothy Kisiga slotting outside, or even just a 10-12 of Ian and Massa, where they keep interchanging depending on the situation.
I would put Massa at 12.
Uh-huh.
That is for his creativeness.
Creativeness or defensiveness?
Creative.
Okay.
When it comes to defense, Massa has to really, he has his hands full, to be honest.
And 13?
13, there are many. 13, there is Ian. Ian, I would put, but Aredo doesn't have the speed for that.
But he has played there before for club.
13,
Hey.
13 I'd put Ian.
Ian.
There's no
So
one else,
Massa and Ian.
Massa and Ian.
And your back three?
My back three, Kisiga, definitely has to feature.
Now, some of the names are easy to mention, but where do you want them? Of course, back threes in modern rugby are fluid, but in what positions do you want them? Because you have Claudio Tema, you have Shakim Sembusi, you have Philip Okorach, you have Adrian Casito, and you have Timothy Kisiga.
So I would put Kisiga, Adrian, and Philip.
Kisiga at...
Kisiga at which wing? Open.
At open. 14.
No. Blind.
11.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then I would put Casito at
14. Philip at 15. Okay, that's interesting. So as we conclude this, of course, for all those that are watching, this is the build-up to the Rugby Africa Cup Fat Cats, powered by Rock Boom. What are those memories that you have, those moments that you will always hold dear from previous matchups that you played in with Uganda versus Kenya?
The first one, of course, would be winning Elgon Cup at Ngong Road.
Winning Elgon Cup and Ngong Road.
Yeah. And I won it twice, right? But there was
2015, 2012, those are the most recent ones, I believe.
I think the 2012 one. The 2012 one.
What was so special about that one?
It was so muddy. Hey, it was so muddy, and I remember the game had.
That was at Chadondo?
No, it was at
across Ngong.
Across Ngong Road.
Yes.
It was so muddy. The game was done. So, because we were near the bench, they were shouting at us like, "Kick it out, kick it out!" But the guys on the other side of the field
were not hearing.
So they kept ping-ponging the ball, kicking it around, and they were not kicking the ball out. So I remember me and Matthias were losing our minds. We were like, "Kick the ball out! Kick the ball out!" Then at least one of them, I think it was Jude Kelmundu, finally got the message and booted it out. That was one. Then there was the one where they brought almost the entire Kenya Sevens team. Humphreys, Collins, they brought almost everyone at Chadondo, and we still managed to beat them. That one actually featured one of my best tries. Okay. Actually, the best try that I've seen scored in Uganda by Sogi, who went round Humphrey and Collins to score. So imagine, Sogi of all the people running around Collins.
Yeah, Robert said, may his soul continue to rest in peace. But anyway, any last words for the boys and maybe a prediction if you'd want to put one in?
No predictions. No predictions, no. No, I'm a sportsman, so I know these things can go. But they have to come hard. Like, always these first games have a lot of jitters. And the thing with Uganda is we normally settle in the second last quarter of the game. So I just hope we manage to settle in as early as possible and not concede they shouldn't concede at all. Even one try, even one penalty, they cannot
Yeah,
concede.
so defense should be key.
The defense should be key. Yeah. Get our set pieces right. That's it.
Yeah, of course, besides us, the boys here are training. You can probably hear them shout as they are going through the paces, a few of their moves polishing up here and there. Of course, we could not show you that because we don't want to spoil the secret sauce that they are giving. But anyway, this is, of course, the Fat Cats build up to the Rugby Africa Cup match day one, brought to you by Rockboom. And make sure that you go to Nambole and watch the games. Tickets 30K, 60K for VIP and 150K for VVIP. But I believe there are still some discounts that are happening courtesy of MTN Momo. But also, the Fat Cats will be giving out some free tickets, so look out for that. Cheers.